Between 1920 and 1929, around 115 million Americans lived through one of the wildest decades in modern history, a time filled with jazz, prohibition, booming car culture, and a wave of new freedoms. The Roaring Twenties were thrilling and revolutionary, but for most everyday folks, life was a strange mix of old traditions and shocking modern changes. Here's what it was really like to live through America's most transformative decade. Real quick, if you're into stories like this, hit like or subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. Last week, someone from Tokyo said it was already tomorrow there. Still blows my mind. All right, tonight we're headed to America in the 1920s. But before we dive in, get comfortable, adjust those pillows, pull that blanket up. Once this story starts, you won't want to move. Your eyes open to a cramped New York City tenement apartment, 1921. The first thing you notice is the noise. Voices leaking through paper-thin walls, water pipes banging, and a baby crying somewhere down the hall. You're lying on a narrow, metal-framed bed with a lumpy cotton mattress that smells faintly of mildew and sweat. Unlike the cozy bed you know today, this one's shared with your brother, who's already up, washing his face at a small basin balanced on a rickety wooden chair. "Hey, sleepyhead," he says, splashing water on his face. "Factory whistle's gonna blow in 40 minutes. The entire room is barely 10 feet square, 2 beds crammed against opposite walls, and a single window facing a brick wall across a narrow air shaft. It's so close you could almost reach out and touch the building next door. That window is your only source of fresh air, which means in the summer, you either leave it open and give up all privacy, or close it and suffocate in the heat. In winter, like now, icy drafts slip through the loose frame, making the thin blankets practically useless. You know that feeling when your alarm goes off, but your bed is so warm, you can't bear to get out. Multiply that by 1,000. It's January in New York, and the only heat in the apartment comes from a small coal stove in the main room. You can already hear your mother coughing as she stokes the fire. The whole apartment has just 4 rooms. This tiny bedroom you share with your brother. Another even smaller one where your parents and 2 sisters sleep. A main room that's both kitchen and living area. And a cramped water closet with just a toilet, which actually counts as a luxury. Some tenements still use outdoor outhouses, but at least you don't have to go outside in the freezing cold just to relieve yourself. Baths, though, that's a weekly trip to the public bathhouse. Your brother finishes toweling off. "Hey," he says with a grin, "Ma's making real coffee today. Not that fake chicory stuff." As the smell drifts into the room, one thing fills your mind. The same thought you wake up with every single morning in 1921. Survival. How do we make it through today? The alarm clock beside your bed costs nearly a week's wages, but it's essential. Miss your shift at the garment factory, and someone takes your spot before lunch. There's always a hungry line of immigrants waiting for work. I spent way too long researching tenement housing layouts for this. Did you know some didn't even have windows, except in the front room? Actual death traps where people lived for decades. Your stomach growls as you swing your legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor is ice cold against your bare feet. In your modern bed right now, you might have a carpet beside you, warm socks, maybe slippers waiting here. It's bare boards and the shock of cold that finishes waking you up. Ma traded Mrs. Goldstein some darning for an extra loaf, your brother says, pulling on a patched shirt. So, there's actual toast. Food. Always food. The constant calculation of calories versus cost. Your factory job pays $12 a week for 60 hours of work. Rent for this 4-room tenement apartment is $30 a month. Do the math and weep. Every penny goes to a complex equation of survival. You pull on wool socks with holes in the toes, heavy cotton trousers worn thin at the knees, a flannel shirt patched at the elbows, and suspenders that were your father's before his factory accident last year. Getting dressed in the 1920s isn't the casual affair it is now. Everything has purpose. Everything gets used until it disintegrates, then gets repurposed again. Pop's already gone, your brother says, lacing up his boots. Night shift at the dock. That's how families survive in 1921. Tag team working. Father works nights unloading ships, sleeps days. You and your brother work days at the garment factory. Mother takes in laundry, mending, whatever odd jobs come along. Your older sister works at Woolworths. The younger one's still in school, but not for long. At 14, she'll join the workforce soon enough. The landlord's like, $5, or you're out. And you're thinking, fives? That's half my weekly pay. Because eviction is a constant threat hanging over every family. No tenant protections, no lease agreements for most. Just weekly envelopes of cash and the landlord's mood determining your housing security. You make your way to the main room where your mother stands at the coal stove, stirring a pot of oatmeal. The stove provides the only warmth in the apartment, making this room the heart of your home. The room smells of coal smoke, coffee, and yesterday's cabbage soup. Sleep, okay? Your mother asks, not looking up. Her hands are red and chapped from washing other people's clothes. She's 43, but looks 60. Fine. You lie. The truth is, you were up half the night listening to your father coughing in the next room. That dock dust gets in the lungs. Breakfast in 1921 is serious business. No grabbing a protein bar or coffee shop stop. This meal needs to fuel hours of physical labor. Your mother ladles thick oatmeal into a chipped bowl, adds a sprinkle of sugar, a luxury, and pours coffee into a tin cup. The coffee is stretched with Cory to make it last longer. Bitter, but hot. You know those fancy artisan toast places charging $8 for avocado toast? Yeah. No. Your toast is a thick slice of day-old bread, slightly stale, held over the stove grate until it browns, then spread with a scraping of lard. Protein and calories, the currency of survival. Through the window, you can see the street 5 floors below coming alive. A milk wagon rattles past, glass bottles clinking. The milkman's horse leaves steaming deposits on the cobblestones, which kids will dodge on their way to school. A man with a pushcart shouts about hot chestnuts. The newspaper boy is already shouting headlines about Prohibition raids. Tony got arrested last night, your sister says, entering from the other bedroom. She's already dressed for work, hair pinned up severely, caught with a flask at Mancini's place. And here we encounter one of the most bizarre experiments in American history. Prohibition. January 1920. The government decided alcohol was the root of all evil and banned it completely. Manufacturing, selling, transporting, all illegal. Can you imagine the absolute chaos? Picture the government deciding tomorrow that coffee is illegal, or sugar, or, I don't know, cheese. Something millions of people use daily. What happens? People don't stop. They just get creative. Tony's an idiot, your brother says, wolfing down oatmeal. Everyone knows Mancini's gets raided on Tuesdays. because that's how Prohibition actually worked. This elaborate dance between cops who needed to show arrests and speakeasies that reopened the next day with a new password. The password this week: I'm thirsty, real subtle. The speakeasy doorman gives you this look. Password, he growls, and you're standing there like, thirsty? Because even the passwords were an open secret. Everyone knew which barber shops had illegal bars in the back, whichies would sell you medicinal whiskey, which grocery stores had wine grapes labeled warning, will ferment into wine. If left in warm place for 3 weeks, you finish breakfast standing up too rushed to sit through the walls. You can hear the Calabresi family's morning argument, the Levinsky baby crying, Mrs. Orr's morning coughing fit. Privacy doesn't exist in the tenement life. Everyone knows everyone's business. Troubles, joys. Outside, the January air hits like a slap. The street teems with people, women with shopping baskets, men hurrying to work, children darting between adults. The smell is a complex mix of coal smoke, horse manure, garbage waiting for collection, and the enticing scent of bread from the Italian bakery on the corner. Your breath forms clouds in the frigid air as you and your brother join the river of workers flowing toward the factories. Women in headscarves, men in caps, all moving with purpose. This early, the automobiles are few, mostly delivery trucks, bringing goods to shops. The wealthy with their private cars won't be out until later. I'll race you past Scarelli's, your brother says, and you both break into a jog, dodging pedestrians. Physical fitness wasn't a hobby. In 1921, it was built into daily life. No one had gym memberships, because life itself was a constant workout. Past the butcher shop, with its window display of cuts most modern Americans wouldn't recognize. Past the greengrocer, where your mother will haggle over bruised vegetables. Later, past Mrs. Finkelstein, who runs the notion shop, where your sister buys thread to mend everything endlessly. The garment factory looms ahead. 6 stories of brick with windows that barely open in summer, creating an inferno where you and 500 others work. In winter, like now, those same windows let in drafts that make your fingers so numb you can barely operate the sewing machine. You ever had that moment where your one paycheck from disaster? That was Tuesday for most people. No safety net existed, no unemployment insurance, no workers' compensation, no social security. Your boss basically says, work faster or someone else will, because there's always someone hungrier waiting for your job. Waiting at the factory entrance is Mr. Perkins, the floor manager, checking his pocket watch. 2 minutes to whistle, he says, nodding as you pass. Being late means docked pay or worse. Inside the factory floor stretches vast and already humming. Rows of sewing machines, pressing stations, cutting tables. The air's thick with fabric dust, steam, and the smell of machine oil. Your lungs will feel it by day's end. The workers are a United Nations assembly. Italian, Jewish, Irish, Polish, Greek, first and second generation immigrants, building America stitch by stitch. English mixes with a dozen other languages in a constant babble beneath the machine noise. You take your station at the sewing machine as the starting whistle blasts. For the next 12 hours, you'll feed fabric through the machine, creating men's shirts, sold in fancy department stores for more money than you make in days. Your back will ache, your eyes will strain, your hands will cramp. The woman beside you, Mrs. 11, nods. Hello? She's 60, if she's a day. Fingers permanently curved from decades at the machine. My engaged. She tells you during a brief lull to a dentist. The pride in her voice tells the whole immigrant story. First generation suffers so the second can rise. Lunch break comes after 6 hours. 20 minutes to wolf down the sandwich your mother packed. Bread, a slice of bologonia, a pickle if you're lucky. Workers sprawl on crates or lean against walls, too tired to even leave the building. I mean, imagine working without any of the protections we take for granted. No breaks required by law. No safety standards. The fire escape doors often locked to prevent theft. After the Triangle Shirt Waste Factory fire in 1911 killed 146 workers, some improvements came, but not nearly enough. The afternoon drags, fingers flying on autopilot while minds wander. You've made 63 shirt collars so far. Quotota is 100 by day end. Fall short 3 days running, and there's someone to take your place. By 4, winter darkness already falls. The gas lights flicker on, making precision work even harder. Outside the grimy windows, snow begins to fall, adding another worry. Bad weather means streetcar delays, icy sidewalks, wet feet leading to colds you can't afford. The cop on the corner looks at your flask and goes, "I didn't see nothing," because even they knew Prohibition was a joke. The police had an impossible job enforcing a law nobody wanted, leading to the first modern era of widespread corruption. Badge by day, speak easy, customer by night. Quitting whistle finally blasts at 7. Your back screams as you straighten, fingers stiff claws that slowly uncurl. Around you, hundreds of workers sigh collectively, gather belongings, bundle up for the cold journey home. Payday tomorrow, your brother says, as you push through the crowd towards the exit. Those magic words that make it all worthwhile, or at least bearable. Outside, snow falls thicker now, muffling the city sounds. Gas street lights create halos in the white air. Your feet crunch along the accumulating snow as you join the exodus home. Some lucky workers board streetcars, paying their nickel fare. You and your brother walk to save the money. Wait, let me back up. Your feet. You're wearing boots with thin soles and leaks where the leather's cracked. Each step in the snow sends a shock of cold up your legs. By the time you reach home, your socks will be wet, your toes numb. Modern waterproof boots with thermal insulation, pure fantasy. The streets transform in the evening hours. Shops close. Restaurants and social clubs light up. Music drifts from open doors. The new jazz that moral guardians claim is corrupting youth. On the corner, a newsboy shouts, "President Harding's cabinet announced, read all about it." And here's something wild. Despite Prohibition being barely a year old, you pass 3 speakeasies on your 10B block walk home. You recognize them by the line of cars outside nondescript buildings, the faint sound of jazz, the bouncer eyeing everyone who approaches. One's disguised as a soda shop, another as a bookstore. The third doesn't even pretend, just a blank door with a sliding peephole. We should stop at Mancini's, your brother suggests. One drink, I got paid for that extra work. This is how most workers cope with the crushing routine. A quick drink before home, a moment of escape. But it's different now, shadowed with the thrill and danger of illegality after Tony. No way. You answer Murphy's on Thursday, because even in speakeasy culture, you had your routine, different nights, different places. Spreading your illegal business around was just smart. When you finally climb the 5 flights to your tenement apartment, the smell of cabbage soup greets you. Your mother stretched yesterday's leftovers, added an onion and potato with thick slices of bread. It'll fill bellies. Your father's at the table already, looking gray with exhaustion after his night shift. Your sisters set out chipped bowls and tin cups. This is dinner in working class 1921. Simple food eaten together. The meal planned around overlapping work schedules. Got a letter from Cousin Frank in Chicago. Your father says between spoonfuls, says there's good work in the stockyards, better pay than here, and there it is, the constant calculation. Stay or go. Endure known hardships or risk new ones. Mobility wasn't just a luxury in the 1920s. It was a survival strategy. Follow the work. Follow the opportunity. Keep moving to stay ahead of poverty. After dinner, your family's evening ritual unfolds. Your father repairs a chair leg while your mother mends clothes. Your sister reads aloud from the newspaper, one of the Italian dailies, while your younger sister struggles through homework at the table. No private rooms for homework. No quiet study space. Life happens collectively in the two main rooms. Says here, they raided 50 speakeasies last night. Your sister reads, confiscated 500 gallons of liquor. Your father snorts, 500? That's what one night's business waste of time. And he's right. Prohibition created the first modern criminal underground, turned ordinary citizens into law-breakers, corrupted police forces nationwide, all while failing spectacularly at its goal of creating a dry nation. By 9 exhaustion catches everyone. Tomorrow's another workday, another alarm clock, another 60 hours of labor stretching ahead. In your comfortable bed right now, you might stay up reading, watching shows, scrolling through social media. In 1921, sleep was the only affordable luxury. You return to the tiny bedroom, now freezing as the cold stove in the main room burns down for the night. Undressing quickly, you slide between cold sheets, pull the thin blankets up, and wait for your body heat to create a small pocket of warmth. Your brother's already in bed, reading a dog-eared pulp magazine by the weak light of a single bulb. Electricity in tenements was still relatively new, unreliable, expensive, but magical compared to gas lighting. Night, he says, switching off the light. In the darkness, you hear the symphony of tenement life. Babies crying, couples arguing, someone playing a violin badly, water pipes knocking, the L train rumbling 2 blocks away. These sounds are the lullaby of urban 1921. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. The same, probably the relentless routine of survival, but also maybe not, because the 1920s were just beginning their roar, and change was coming faster than anyone could imagine. Through the window, snow continues to fall on a New York transformed from just a decade ago. Horse-drawn wagons share streets with automobiles. Now, telephones connect businesses. Movies flicker silently in palatial theaters. Women's hemlines creep scandalously upward. And somewhere in Brooklyn, a 6-year-old named Miriam listens to her immigrant parents dream of a better future for her. In 40 years, she'll be your grandmother, telling you stories of the hardships that seem impossible from the comfort of your modern life. You're falling asleep now, body aching from work, mind already calculating tomorrow's survival. But there's also a current of excitement, because it's 1921 and America is changing by the minute. Who knows what might be possible by decade's end? Now, let's shift our view. While tenement dwellers in New York fought for survival inch by inch, a different America stretched across the vast countryside. It's 1923 now, and we're waking up on a farm in Iowa about 100 miles west of Des Moines. The first thing you notice is the silence. No neighbors arguing through thin walls. No streetcars clanging. No factory whistles. Just the distant crow of a rooster and the soft lowing of cows needing to be milked. You're in a wooden farmhouse that your grandfather built with his own hands after claiming this land under the Homestead Act decades ago. You're lying on a feather mattress instead of cotton and springs. The feathers came from your own geese, plucked washed and stuffed by your mother and sisters last fall. The sheets are rough cotton, but clean, line-dried in yesterday's sunshine. The quilt covering you was made by your grandmother, each square telling a family story. And fabric, it's barely 500 a.m., but farm life doesn't care about clocks. Your body knows the rhythm without an alarm. Cows need milking at sunrise, no matter what. The wooden floor is cold against your bare feet, but you're used to it. The house is heated by a single wood stove downstairs, meaning upstairs bedrooms stay cold enough in winter to see your breath. You up, John? Your father calls from downstairs. He's been awake for 30 minutes already, stoking the kitchen stove for your mother, who's mixing biscuit dough by the light of a kerosene lamp. Coming, P, you answer, pulling on denim overalls over your long underwear. No shower this morning, or any morning. The farmhouse has no indoor plumbing. There's an outhouse 50 yards behind the kitchen and a pump at the kitchen sink that brings up cold water from the well. For washing, you splash your face and hands with water from the ceramic basin on your dresser, water that froze a thin skin of ice overnight. Breakfast on a 1923 farm is no quick affair. You need serious calories for the work ahead. Your mother has already cooked a skillet of salt pork. Its fat used to season the cast iron pan, now full of scrambled eggs from your own chickens. Biscuits bake in the oven. Coffee boils in an enamel pot strong enough to stand a spoon in. Today's the day, your father says, pouring coffee for himself. His hands are permanently tanned from years in the fields, with calluses thick as leather. Jenkins is bringing it around noon. Your heart skips. Today's the day your family joins the revolution that's transforming America. Automobile ownership. After years of saving, your father's buying a Model T Ford from the dealer in town. You've never owned a car before. Few farm families have. But that's changing fast. Think it'll make it up the hill to the Petersons? Your mother asks, setting a plate of eggs before you. She's worried about the expense, the practicality. 20 years of horse transportation doesn't shift overnight. Henry Ford didn't become the richest man in America by making things that don't work, your father answers. But there's worry behind his confidence. The Model T costs $290, a fortune for a family that might see actual cash only a few times a year. After harvest, farmers in the 1920s operated largely outside the cash economy most of the time. You produced what you ate. You bartered eggs for sugar at the general store, traded labor with neighbors during harvest, repaired what broke, made what you needed. Actual dollars were rare and precious. After breakfast, you head to the barn with your father and younger brother. The daily chores wait for no one, car delivery or not. The barn smells of hay, manure, and the sweet breath of cows. 6 dairy cows need milking. The horses need feeding. The pigs need slop. Your hands move automatically, squeezing rhythmically as warm milk hisses into the metal bucket. P, can I drive it first? Your brother asks, fork deep in soiled straw. Your father laughs. Nobody's driving but me till I figure it out. That thing cost more than the South Field. I spent hours researching early car ownership, and the learning curve was brutal. No driver's education, no licensing requirements in most rural areas. Just a complicated machine, some basic instructions, and a lot of trial and error. The manual for a 1923 Model T included helpful tips like to stop the car, first pull the gas lever back to neutral, then apply the brake. Do not become frightened and jump out. The morning passes in the rhythm of chores as old as farming itself. Milk the cows, separate cream, feed livestock, gather eggs, repair fences, check crops. The work of survival never ends. But there's a strange comfort in its predictability. By 11, you've changed into your town clothes, not fancy, but clean overalls, and a collar shirt without manure stains. Your mother's put on her good dress, the blue one saved for church and special occasions. Even your father's combed his hair and put on a freshly ironed shirt. Hear that? Your brother says, running in from the porch. It's coming. And then you hear it, the unmistakable put-put-put of a Model T engine laboring up the dirt road to your farm. The sound of the modern world arriving at your door. Your whole family spills onto the porch, watching as a shiny black automobile bounces over the ruts of your lane. Mr. Jenkins from the dealership grins behind the wheel, dust coating him from the 12-mile drive from town. She's a beauty, ain't she? He calls, bringing the vehicle to a jerky stop in your yard. Chickens scatter in panic at this noisy intruder, and she is beautiful. Gleaming black metal brass headlamps, a folding top for rain protection. The Model T isn't fancy by later standards. It's utilitarian, designed to handle the brutal rural roads with high clearance and a tough suspension. But to your family in 1923, it's nothing short of miraculous. Can drive her anywhere, Mr. Jenkins says, patting the hood like a favorite horse. 15 horsepower, 20 mph on good roads, 20 millibri. The math transforms your world instantly. The trip to town, 12 mem that takes half a day by horse and wagon, suddenly shrinks to maybe 40 minutes. The county seat, previously a full-day journey, becomes a morning trip. Mr. Jenkins pops the hood to show your father the engine. Now starting her takes some practice. Got the hand crank here in front. Choke here. Timing advance here. Too much choke. She'll flood. Not enough. Won't catch. Timing too advanced. She'll kick back and break your arm. Wait, what? Yeah. Starting early cars was legitimately dangerous. The hand crank could snap back and break bones if the timing was wrong. Emergency rooms of the 1920s were full of what doctors called Ford fractures, broken arms, wrists, and thumbs from car cranks kicking back. Your father nodded seriously, absorbing every word. This is the most complicated piece of technology your family has ever owned. More complex than the cream separator. More expensive than anything but the farm itself. Now driving has simple enough, Jenkins continues. 3 pedals on the floor, left is clutch, press down for low gear, release halfway for high gear, middle is reverse, right is brake. Your father looks concerned. Middle is reverse, not the left. Jenkins laughs. Ford's got his own way of doing things, different from other makers. You'll get used to it, and that was actually true. Early cars had zero standardization, pedal arrangements, shifting patterns. Even which side of the road to drive on wasn't fully settled in all states yet. Learning to drive one car didn't necessarily prepare you for another. After more instructions, Jenkins has your father sit behind the wheel, turn the key, set the gas lever here, set the spark advance here. Now come around front and give her a crank. Your father follows directions, moves to the front, grips the crank, and gives it a mighty swing. Nothing happens. Another swing. Nothing. Bit more choke, Jenkins suggests. Third try. The engine catches with a roar and a belch of smoke that sends your mother's chickens running for their lives. Your father rushes back to the driver's seat, where Jenkins walks him through the pedals again. Ready for a spin? Jenkins asks. Your father nods, face set in concentration. The car lurches forward with a jerk, stalls, starts again, jerks forward, picks up speed. Your father's face transforms from worry to wonder as the automobile begins moving smoothly around the farmyard. Want to take her on the road? Jenkins calls above the engine noise. Your father nods, and the Model T bounces down the lane toward the country road. Your father gripping the wheel, like it might fly away. You and your brother chase after on foot, whooping with excitement. From your porch, the car disappears around the bend, but you can hear the engine echoing across the cornfields. 10 minutes later, it reappears. Your father, now smiling broadly, behind the wheel. The future has arrived at your farm, and nothing will ever be the same. After Jenkins leaves, driven home by your father, who will return with the car, alone, his first solo drive. The family crowds around the Model T like it's a spacecraft. Your mother touches the leather seat cautiously. Imagine getting to town in under an hour, she says softly, and you can see her calculating all the ways this changes her life. The isolation of farm women was profound before cars. Visits to town might happen once a month at most. Church on Sundays, if weather permitted. Otherwise, the farm was your world. I can drive to the Petersonen place in minutes, your father says, already planning. Borrow that new seed drill. Without losing a whole day to travel, your brother crawls underneath, examining the axles and suspension. How fast do you think it really goes, Par? We'll find out tomorrow, your father promises. First, I need to figure out how to drive the darn thing properly. And figure it out. He does, though not without incident. That first month of car ownership brings new vocabulary into your family's life. Words like carburetor, distributor, and flat tire become regular topics at the dinner table. There's the memorable afternoon your father drives into the yard too fast and sideswipes the water trough, denting the fender. There's the Sunday your whole family dresses for church, piles into the car, and makes it exactly 2 miles before a tire blows out. Your father changes it in his good suit, sweating and swearing under his breath, while your mother pretends not to hear. The new car dealer looks at the flat tire and goes, "Yep, that'll be $4. And your father's thinking, "Fours, that's 3 days' wages for a farmhand." Because the ongoing costs of car ownership shocked many first-time buyers. It wasn't just the purchase price. It was tires, gasoline, oil, repairs, a whole new category of expenses for families who previously fed their transportation with hay they grew themselves. But there are glorious moments too. The first time your family drives to town for supplies and makes the round trip in a single morning instead of a full day. The Sunday you drive 20 minutes to visit cousins you previously saw only at Christmas because of the travel difficulty. The night your mother goes into town for a women's club meeting and comes home after dark. Something impossible in the horse and buggy days. The car changes everything. Suddenly your map expands. The farm is no longer an island in a sea of distance. Town becomes an easy destination, not a journey requiring planning. Neighbors 5 miles away become people you can visit on a whim. By summer, your father has mastered the Model T completely. You and your brother have learned to drive too, at least enough to move it around the farmyard or drive the short distance to the main road. Your mother still refuses to try, claiming she has no head for machinery, but you've seen her eyeing the wheel when she thinks no one's looking. The car enables new freedoms, but it also leads to new family negotiations. Who gets the car when and for what purpose? Your sister wants to drive to town for a motion picture show. Your brother wants to take it fishing at the creek. Your father needs it for farm business. The single vehicle becomes a shared resource, requiring complex family diplomacy. We need rules, your mother announces at dinner. One night, after 3 separate car usage disputes, church on Sundays, market days for supplies, farm business first, social calls only when work's done. Farm business included things modern folks might not consider, like getting a sick animal to the vet, hauling cream to the dairy station before it's spoiled, or bringing home a new breeding animal. One farmer's diary I found mentioned driving 80 miles round trip to purchase a particular bull for his dairy herd, a journey that would have taken days before cars. The greatest transformation comes in autumn, harvest time, always the most critical and stressful season, changes with automobile ownership. Parts break on the threshing machine. Your father drives to town and returns with replacements in 2 hours instead of losing a whole day. Need extra hands for harvesting. He drives to town and brings back day laborers. A bumper crop ready for market. Multiple trips become possible in a single day. The car also connects your family to the wider changes sweeping America. Driving to the county seat, you see more automobiles each visit. The dirt roads designed for horses and wagons are being graded more frequently to accommodate car traffic. There's talk of paving some major routes. Your father returns from town one day with news. They're putting in a filling station on Main Street. No more buying gasoline in cans from the general store. Gas stations, car dealerships, repair shops, whole new categories of business spring up to serve the automobile culture. Roads improve, bridges strengthen. The landscape itself transforms to accommodate this revolution on wheels. By Christmas 1923, your family's Model T seems as essential as the plow or the stove. When snow blankets the farm, and your father puts the car up on blocks in the barn for the winters. Early cars weren't great in snow, and many rural families simply didn't use them during winter months. There's a sense of loss, of returning to an isolation you'd briefly escaped. The car sits idle through the deep winter months, but plans form around it. Your father pores over maps, plotting spring journeys previously unimaginable. Your mother talks of visiting her sister in the next county, a trip previously requiring overnight stays. Your older sister, home from normal school for the holidays, speaks of perhaps living in town and driving home weekends once she starts teaching. Mobility breeds possibility. The car shrinks distance and expands horizons simultaneously. For your family and millions like you, the automobile isn't just a convenience. It's freedom in steel and rubber form. On Christmas Eve, sitting by lamplight, rural electrification is still years away for most farms. Your grandfather tells tales of his youth, crossing half the country by covered wagon, establishing the homestead. The isolation of those early years. Took 3 days to get to town when I first settled here, he says, shaking his head at the changes he's witnessed. And you can do it before lunch. This compression of time and space is the real revolution of the 1920s. The world simultaneously grows larger in reach and smaller in effort. America's vast distances, once barriers to connection, begin to shrink beneath rubber tires. When spring finally softens the land, your father reverses the winterizing process, checking the Model T carefully before taking it down from blocks. The first drive of the new season feels like rebirth, the farm reconnecting to the wider world after months of winter isolation. By now, the novelty has worn off, but the wonder hasn't. Each time the engine rumbles to life, each mile that passes beneath the wheels represents a freedom previous generations could barely imagine. Your grandparents measured travel in days and weather conditions. You measure it in hours and gallons of gasoline. And as your family's Model T bounces down country roads, it joins a growing river of vehicles, transforming America mile by mile. By decade's end, the country will have more than 23 million registered automobiles, one for every 5 Americans. The nation itself is being rewired around this invention. Its geography rewritten in routes accessible by car. The automobile doesn't just change how you travel, it changes where you go, who you see, what you do, what you buy, where you might live or work. It reshapes your relationship with time, distance, community, and possibility. And it's just one of the revolutions remaking America in the roaring decade of the 1920s. It's 1925 now, and we're in Millerville, a small town of about 2,500 souls, nestled between rolling hills in western Pennsylvania. Not a big city like New York, not isolated farmland like Iowa, but something in between. The quintessential American small town where modern life and traditional values collide in fascinating ways. You wake up in a modest 2-story home on Elm Street, just 3 blocks from Maine. Unlike the tenement apartment or the isolated farmhouse, this bedroom is yours alone, a luxury of middle-class life. The bed has a proper metal frame, store-bought mattress, and a colorful quilt your mother ordered from the Sears catalog. Morning light filters through cotton curtains as you stretch beneath warm blankets. Outside your window, you can hear birds chirping, the occasional automobile puttering past, and the distant whistle of the 7:15 train arriving at the station. The house smells of coffee and bacon. Unlike city dwellers, crammed in tenements, or farmers isolated on distant homesteads, your family represents the growing American middle class. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Your father works as the manager at the town's hardware store. Your mother, unusually for married women in 1925, keeps the books for the same business. Your bedroom contains treasures that mark you as a teenager in this transitional decade. A small collection of photograph records stacked beside a hand key cranked Victrola player, movie magazine clippings of Clara Arabeau and Rudolph Valentino pinned to the wall, a crystal radio set you built yourself from a kit ordered through Popular Mechanics. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, feet hitting a proper rug instead of bare boards. The house has modern conveniences your city and country counterparts might envy. Indoor plumbing, with a bathroom shared by the family, electric lights in most rooms, a telephone in the hallway downstairs. Not every house in town has these things yet, but they're spreading rapidly as America's prosperity grows. Sarah, breakfast. Your mother calls from downstairs. You can hear the radio playing in the kitchen. A morning news program from Pittsburgh, the announcer's voice slightly tiny, but clearly audible. The radio, not the automobile, sits at the heart of your family's modern life. I spent way too long researching early radio models for this. Did you know the first commercial radio station, KDKA in Pittsburgh, only started broadcasting in 1920? By 1925, America had over 500 stations, and radio was transforming from novelty to necessity. Downstairs, your family gathers around a proper dining table in a room dedicated just to eating. Another middle-class luxury. Your father sits with the newspaper propped against the sugar bowl. Your mother places a plate of eggs and bacon before you, and your younger brother fiddles with the radio dial, trying to improve reception. Don't touch that, your father says, without looking up from his paper. I want to hear the market report. The radio on the sideboard is the pride of your household. A new Atwater Kent model with 5 tubes and a proper wooden cabinet. No more headphones or crystal sets. This is a genuine piece of furniture that delivers entertainment directly into your home. It costs nearly $80, 2 weeks of your father's salary, but he considers it an investment, not a luxury. There's a new Harold Lloyd picture at the Rialto tonight, your brother says, passing you the toast rack. Can we go? Movies, the other great mass media revolution, have already transformed from novelty to regular entertainment. Millerville has 2 movie theaters, the older Beiju and the newer, fancier Rialto, with actual upholstered seats and electric fans for summer cooling. Test scores first, your mother answers, but her tone suggests permission is likely. Unlike earlier generations, your parents view commercial entertainment as normal, even beneficial. The motion picture industry has worked hard to shed its slightly disreputable early image, promoting films as educational and wholesome family entertainment. Your father lowers his paper. Says here, Coolidge is speaking on the radio tonight. National hookup. He says this with genuine wonder, the president's voice coming directly into your living room. The miracle hasn't grown stale yet. So, for context, President Coolidge was nicknamed Silent Cal because he was so reserved. But even this quiet president embraced radio immediately. Like most politicians, he recognized its power to bypass newspapers and speak directly to voters. Radio made national politics immediate and personal in ways print never could. After breakfast, you head downtown with your brother to run errands before school. Main Street bustles with morning activity. Mr. Peterson unlocking his pharmacy. Mrs. Winters sweeping the sidewalk in front of her millinery shop. The mailman delivering packages to the general store. Unlike the anonymous city or the isolated farm, small-town life means being known. Morning. Sarah calls Mr. Peterson. Tell your mother her headache powder came in. 3 people greet you by name before you reach the corner. This interconnectedness defines small-town existence, comforting or stifling depending on your perspective. You pass the Rialto Theater, where the marquee indeed advertises Harold Lloyd in The Freshman. A colorful poster shows the bespectacled comedian hanging from a clock face. Movie marketing is sophisticated already, with nationwide advertising campaigns, fan magazines, and merchandise. The movie star system is in full flower, creating the first modern celebrities known as intimately as family members, despite never being met in person. Think Clara Arabo will ever come to Millerville? Your brother asks, staring at another poster showing the famous It Girl in a revealing costume. Dream on, you laugh. Small towns might get the same movies as big cities, but actual movie stars exist in another universe. At the newsstand, you spend your allowance on the latest issue of Photoplay, a movie magazine promising exclusive interviews with the stars inside are glossy photos of the famous faces you and millions of other Americans collectively adore. Chaplin Fairbanks, Pigford Swanson. Their hairstyles will be copied, their clothing imitated, their romances analyzed by people who've never been to Hollywood and never will go. The theater manager passes by, tips his hat. Coming tonight? Lloyd's a scream in this one. Hope to, Mr. Daniels. You answer if homework allows. He winks. Special display in the lobby. Actual football from the movie studio. Sent it as promotion. This national marketing for local consumption represents the new media landscape. Products, promotions, and publicity flow from centers of production to the smallest towns, creating shared cultural touchstone. A joke told in a Harold Lloyd film will be repeated in schoolyards. From Maine to California, Americans increasingly laugh at the same things, cry at the same stories, worry about the same news. School occupies the middle of your day. A consolidated high school serving Millerville and surrounding farms. Unlike your parents' one-room schoolhouse education, yours features specialized teachers, a science laboratory, even a small gymnasium. Education is changing too, becoming more standardized across America as mass media and improved transportation connect previously isolated systems. But it's after school that the real center of teenage social life in 1925 emerges. Miller's drugstore, with its soda fountain, booze, and most importantly, its Victrola player. Miller's is where Millerville's youth gather to socialize in ways their parents never experienced. 2 cherry phosphates? Your friend Helen orders at the counter. The soda jerk, a college boy home for the summer, nods knowingly. Heard the new Armstrong record? He asks, gesturing to the stack of records beside the Victrola. Hot stuff. The store has a commercial arrangement with Victor Records. They sell records, but also play them as promotion. For the price of a soda, teens can listen to the latest jazz and dance music, much to the concern of some parents who view jazz as dangerously sensual and modern. My dad says jazz is causing moral decay. Helen sighs, rolling her eyes. Put it on. The music that fills the drugstore would shock earlier generations, with its syncopated rhythms and improvisational style. But to you and your friends, it's simply the soundtrack of youth. Louise Armstrong's trumpet soars above the scratchy recording, creating a sound unlike anything your parents grew up hearing. Teenage culture in the 1920s was becoming distinct for the first time, shaped by commercial entertainment rather than traditional community values. Parents worried while teenagers embraced new music, new dances, new fashions spread by mass media. Did you hear last night's Collier Hour? Asks Edward, sliding into your booth uninvited. They had that detective story writer. What's his name? Dashiell Hammett supplies Helen, who devours detective stories. Radio created shared national experiences impossible in previous eras. The next day, after a popular program, Americans everywhere discussed the same episodes, quoted the same lines, laughed at the same jokes. Regional isolation began dissolving in a sea of standardized entertainment. My folks got a new radiola. Edward boasts 6 tubes. Dad let me stay up for the fight broadcast from New York. Heard Dempsey get knocked out in real time. Sports broadcasting nationalized athletics, turning local teams into national obsessions and athletes into celebrities. Before radio, you might read about a boxing match the next day. Now, you could hear it as it happened, the announcer's excitement, making you feel present at events occurring hundreds of miles away. The soda jerk changes the record, putting on a Paul Whiteman dance tune. Anyone going to the dance at the Grangy Saturday? He asks. Wouldn't miss it, Helen answers. Sarah's teaching me the Charleston. The boy from the pharmacy looks at you and goes, you know the Charleston for real? Because even in small towns, the dance crazes that swept urban areas eventually arrived, sometimes months after they'd already peaked in New York or Chicago. But they arrived nonetheless, carried by movies, magazines, photograph records, and travelers. You demonstrate a few Charleston steps beside the booth, exaggerating the swinging arms and twisted knees that scandalize parents and delight teens. The dance's energetic abandon perfectly captures the spirit of the decade. Modern, rebellious, carefree. As afternoon stretches toward evening, you head home for dinner, stopping by the hardware store to walk home with your father. The store itself is another symbol of changing times. Traditional tools still occupy prominent space, but new sections cater to automobile owners, radio enthusiasts, and home modernization. Look what just came in, your father says proudly, showing you a display of electric toasters. Future of home appliances right there. Consumer culture was exploding in the 1920s as electrification spread and mass production made previously luxury items affordable to the middle class. Advertising in magazines, newspapers, and radio created desire for products people hadn't known they needed. The modern consumer was being born. Dinner at home follows middle-class rituals unchanged for decades. Proper place settings, serving dishes passed around the table, conversation about the day's events. But tonight's normally is interrupted by the radio in the living room. Hurry up, your father urges, checking his pocket watch. President speaking in 15 minutes. National broadcast. After dishes are cleared, your family settles in the living room. Father in his armchair directly facing the radio. Mother in her rocker with mending. You and your brother on the sofa. The radio glows warmly as tubes heat up, emitting a soft hum before voices emerge. This is Graham McName speaking to you from Washington, D.C., where President Coolidge will address the nation on the state of the economy. Your father shushes everyone. Though no one's speaking, the room falls silent as the president's distinctive New England accent fills your Pennsylvania living room. The moment feels profound. The nation's leader speaking simultaneously to millions of citizens in their private homes. Imagine going from a world where you might never hear the president speak unless he visited your town to one where his voice regularly entered your living room. The psychological impact was enormous. Political leadership became both more intimate and more polished as radio required new skills from public figures. After the speech, your family discusses the president's points about the booming economy. Your father, a Republican, like most small business managers, approves of Coolidge's pro-business stance. Your mother, with more progressive leanings, has reservations. What matters isn't their disagreement, but that they both heard exactly the same speech at exactly the same time as millions of other Americans. A shared national moment, impossible before radio. Can we go to the movies now? Your brother asks. The post-speech analysis drones on. Your father checks his watch. 8-hour showing. Be home by 10. The walk to the Rialto takes you down Main Street, transformed by evening. Shop windows glow with electric lights. Cars line the curb outside the hotel where traveling salesmen stay. The ice cream parlor bustles with couples and families enjoying an evening treat. The movie theater marquee shines like a beacon, bulbs outlining the freshmen in electric glory. Outside, a crowd gathers, farm families in town for the evening, factory workers still in work clothes, high school students giggling in groups, young couples using the darkened theater for modest courtship. Inside the lobby dazzles with gilt paint, patented carpet, and a refreshment stand selling candy and popcorn. Movie theaters were designed as palaces of escape, their ornate architecture offering ordinary people a taste of luxury for the price of admission. 25 cents for adults, 15 for children. The football from the film sits in a glass case, surrounded by promotional stills, showing Harold Lloyd in various comic predicaments. A cardboard cutout of the star grins manically as patrons pose beside it for fun. 2. Please, you tell the ticket seller, sliding coins across the counter. Your weekly allowance disappears, but the expense seems worthwhile. For 2 hours of entertainment, more elaborate than anything previous generations could imagine. The theater interior impresses with red velvet curtains covering the screen, painted ceiling murals depicting classical scenes, and even small electric lights lining the aisles. No modern multiplex can match the opulent movie palaces of the 1920s, designed to transport ordinary people into worlds of fantasy before the film even began. As the lights dim, an organist begins playing at the theater's prized Wurlitzer. Unlike metropolitan movie palaces with full orchestras, small-town theaters may do with a single musician. Still, the organ's rich tones fill the space, setting the mood for entertainment. First comes a newsreel showing world events. The Prince of Wales touring Africa, floods in Mississippi, a fashion show in Paris. For many in the audience, especially from outlying farms, these newsreels provide their only visual connection to world events. Before television, this was video journalism, powerfully immediate compared to newspaper accounts. Next, a cartoon featuring Felix the cat bounces across the screen, eliciting the laughs from children and adults alike. Animation was already sophisticated by 1925, with established characters and consistent styles that audiences recognized and anticipated. Finally, the main feature begins. Silent, of course. The jazz singer, with synchronized sound, is still 2 years away. Title cards provide dialogue and narration, but the storytelling is primarily visual, relying on exaggerated expressions and physical comedy that requires no translation. The audience reacts as one, laughing, gasping, occasionally applauding particularly impressive stunts. This collective experience represents another way mass media united Americans. Millions would see this exact film, react to the same moments, discuss the same scenes afterward. You lose yourself in the story, worries temporarily forgotten in the flickering images. This escapism is precisely what made movies so popular during economic hardship or social change. For the price of admission, anyone could step into different lives, different worlds. Afterward, walking home through quiet streets, you and your brother quote favorite scenes and imitate Lloyd's pratfalls. The shared experience creates immediate connection, common reference points in an increasingly standardized national culture. At home, your parents are listening to a dance orchestra program on the radio, the music softly filling the house. Your mother looks up from her book. Good picture. Hilarious. Your brother answers, launching into a detailed description of the football game scene. You head upstairs to your room, mind still full of movie images. Before bed, you tune your crystal radio set with headphones, carefully adjusting the wire on the crystal to catch distant stations. Unlike the family's console radio downstairs, this private listening device lets you explore the airwaves independently. Past your bedtime, headphones on, you listen to jazz from Pittsburgh, a hotel orchestra from Cleveland, fragments of voices from Chicago fading in and out with atmospheric conditions. The radio collapses distance in the darkness, bringing the wider world to your small-town bedroom. Lying in bed, you consider how different your life is from your parents' adolescence just 20 years earlier. They grew up in relative isolation, their entertainment locally produced, their horizons limited by physical distance. You inhabit a world where national media create shared experiences across thousands of miles, where movie stars and radio personalities feel like familiar friends, where cultural trends spread coast to coast in weeks instead of years, or not at all. Your room contains the evidence of this transformation: movie magazines, photograph records, radio equipment. Each represents threads connecting you to a wider America, weaving previously separate communities into a more uniform national culture. The voices on your radio fade as stations sign off for the night. This is KDKA Pittsburgh, signing off until 6 a.m. Good night, and God bless America in the silence that follows. You drift towards sleep, your imagination full of images from movies, your head still nodding to remembered jazz rhythms. Tomorrow will bring more local experiences, school chores, face-to-face conversations with friends and neighbors, but increasingly, these local experiences exist within a framework of national media that shapes expectations, creates shared references, and connects even the smallest towns to American culture at large. And as radio signals cross your sleeping town, carrying music, news, and stories to thousands of other communities, America becomes more itself, diverse yet increasingly unified, traditional yet embracing modernity, physically dispersed yet culturally connected in ways no previous generation could have imagined. We've seen working class struggles in New York, rural transformation in Iowa, and middle class life in small town Pennsylvania. But to understand the full spectrum of 1920s America, we need to step into another world entirely. The rarefied air of wealth during the decade that birthed the term, the rich get richer. It's 1927 now, and you're waking up in a bedroom larger than some entire tenement apartments. Sunlight filters through silk curtains onto a bed that cost more than a Model T Ford. You're in Lake Forest, Illinois, one of America's wealthiest suburbs, situated on Lake Michigan, just north of Chicago. This isn't just wealth, it's American aristocracy. Your eyes open to a room designed by a prominent New York decorator. Hand P painted Chinese wallpaper covers, walls hung with original oil paintings. A Persian carpet cushions your feet when you slide from the bed. The sheets are Egyptian cotton, changed daily by housemaids you rarely see. The room is warm despite the winter chill outside. Central heating thermostatically controlled keeps the entire 24-room mansion at a perfect 72 degree. Through large windows, you can see snow dusting the formal gardens that stretch toward the lake. The grounds cover 12 acres, maintained by a staff of 6 gardeners year-round. Unlike the tenement dweller, the farmer, or the small-town teen, your morning doesn't begin with immediate chores or work preparation. Instead, a discreet knock at the door signals your lady's maid, Louise, arriving with a breakfast tray.